The first part of 9x9 tutorial was uploaded almost a year ago. Few people were asking for a second video, so today I return with another tutorial where you will learn that, for example, you really need just a single oscillator to create a whole acid line. You will also see how easy it is to distort the acid bass to get that right type of resonance. The sound itself is easy to remake, so we will use only Ableton instruments and effects. But if you prefer other synthesizers like Serum by Xfer for killer acid bass sounds, then I can recommend you my Rave Techno Serum preset pack. I packed there over 40 Serum presets, MIDI files and percussion samples as a bonus to help you create harder techno dance floor bangers. Learn more about the pack from the link in the description, and in meanwhile I will move on to the Ableton. Because the original Roland TB303 synthesizer had only a single oscillator, in Ableton Wavetable we will not bother at all with both sub-oscillator and oscillator 2. In the first oscillator though, we will set up the Wavetable position fader to play a sawtooth waveform. Following the original 303 synth specifications, the sound is further fed to a 24 dB per octave low-pass filter. In Wavetable we will cut high frequencies in the same way. The oscillator one is by default attached to a low-pass filter, so the only thing we need to do is to set the cutoff frequency and change the filter's slope. We can clearly hear the sound sounds like a plug synth, meaning there is a change of volume and time. We want to fix that to make the volume of our future acid line constant. We will head to the volume envelope section to make this curve look like a rectangle. What gives all the fun and acid sounds is automating the filter settings. That, along with a catchy melody, is a foundation of acid techno. In the 9x9 track, the melody is just a single note played over, but filter modulations still apply. We will remake the original melody by automating the cutoff frequency at first. All the squelching characteristic for acid sounds comes from the filter resonance. Let's increase that to make the acid more resonating. Another good thing for acid sounds is the distortion. While we are going to use a separate effect for that later, we can experiment now with distortion inside of Wavetable. That is because each filter can have a different circuit type set. By default, a clean circuit is set, but with other ones we can use the additional drive control to beef up the synth. Another mandatory thing for acid lines is another filter modulation. Right now we automate the cutoff frequency knob to make certain parts of the melody more tamed. Another cutoff frequency modulation we will attach now will modulate the amount of frequencies cut in a much faster way. Our end goal is to start any MIDI note with a higher cutoff value and end with a lower one. To modulate each MIDI note in that way, an envelope is used. Let's attach the second envelope to the cutoff frequency by using the matrix tab. same envelope can control all the synthesizer parameters for an even more interesting sound. For example, we can modulate the wavetable position itself. And that's the whole job inside of the wavetable. The sound we have right now has to be only enhanced with effects like equalization, distortion and reverb, but before that let me advertise myself quickly and just say that if you wish to have all the sound design or music production subjects explained in such an easy and practical way, consider going onto my website to learn more about my private music production lessons. Free consultations are available as well. The very first thing is to get rid of low frequencies to make the acid sound lighter. After all, it should be only the kick drum and bass that gives us the low end. The acid sounds quieter now, so before I distort it, I will use an utility to pump up the volume. For distortion I will use the overdrive. The reason for using the overdrive is because, at least in my opinion, it adds lots of screaming to the sound without destroying it in other ways. For example, Ableton's amp would be too aggressive. Even though I can add some sort of a scream into the sound, the acid line would get too mangled. I think the overdrive will greatly enhance the resonance of our acid line. Even with my default settings, the sound already changes for the better. So let's start adjusting the effect by setting with the bandpass filter a frequency range we want to enhance. That was the most important thing to adjust in the overdrive, and now we will do more minor adjustments, including the amount of distortion added. After another volume adjustment, I will do more equalization. Overdrive added a bit of lower frequencies, so I will start with another high pass filter. Besides that, in the sound I have an annoying lower frequency buzz in 300 Hz area I want to cut. The sound is dry, so I need to use Reverb to make it smooth. As always, I'm using an audio effect rack for parallel processing. It's nearly the same as just using a dry wet controlling the reverb itself, but having a reverb signal on another chain gives more possibilities to control it. So, once we make sure the reverb put in the reverb chain has the dry wet set to 100%, I begin adjusting the reverb by setting its size parameter. We don't need to make the reverb darker by removing high frequencies from its input, so the top left section can be turned off. The same goes with the chorus. Our reverb should sound simple. What has to be increased is the reverb's length. For a sound that has to fill the whole beat, 1 second is a bit short. The reverb is bright, and we can use the diffusion network section to tame that high end a bit. This gives a different effect than using the input filter section. The last parameter that will give a significant change in the sound is the stereo width of the reverb. To not make the reverb too wide in comparison with the kick and bass that plays in mono, we will turn down the stereo knob. Changing all the remaining parameters will give a minor influence over the sound, and the finished reverb, after adjusting its volume in relation to the dry acid line, sounds like this. A benefit of parallel processing is the ability to, for example, precisely equalize the reverb signal alone, which I will do right now. Similarly as in the equalizer before the reverb, we will remove another hollow resonance from the sound. The last thing is even more equalization. The last equalizer is put after the audio effect rack, so we will equalize the whole acid line with reverb. As in previous equalizers, I am once again sculpting the low-mid frequency area to cut any frequencies that give me a hollow sound. Because all these filters have nearly the same purpose, I will play this acid line along with the kick drum and just A-B the whole equalizer.